First, it's your fault. Second, spend less than you make. Third, take all of the excess and spend it on making more. Because if you're making minimum wage, I'm going to say what you probably already know. You're not going to get ahead. Like, you're not going to save your way there. You're not. Like, everyone loves to tell the story of that one girl at McDonald's, but you know they don't tell the other 100 million people who've worked at McDonald's over the world who didn't make it. And like, the outcome they're talking about is like, she made $1 million over 40 years of working at McDonald's. Like, you can shoot for more. And so, like, take the money you make, live on nothing, and the hard part is just swallowing the pride for the fact that in the short term, everyone's going to be right when they say that you're amounting to nothing. And that's the tough part. That's the glass that you have to swallow, that you have to pull towards you. And there's just no other way. Like, you have to learn the skills. Now, I mean, to be fair, YouTube didn't exist when I was doing this. And like, Instagram was like a new platform. So like, all this stuff, like the stuff we have today is crazy. Like, the stack that these videos and this podcast, like all this stuff didn't exist. Like, I remember when podcasting came out, like I was already a business owner. Like, none of this stuff existed. But at the time, I just took all the money I had. And I want to make this point again, is that people think that the money is about buying courses and stuff like that. And you can, like, there's nothing wrong with that. I've learned a ton from a lot of the stuff that I've bought, to be really honest with you. But I think that I've always had an amazing return on education because I always did it. And I think, like, I always wanted to be the best student in every class. And I was good at school, and I just took business as a different, another type of school. But part of the expenses that come into like what you take that money for is experiments that fail. And so one of the things that happens when you're broke is that you bet on stuff and then it doesn't work and people feel like they're back at zero, but you're not back at zero. You're at where you were plus 1 experience, plus 2 experiences, plus 3 experiences, plus 4 experiences. But when you have plus 18 experiences, all of a sudden, boop, you level up 1. You get experience points. There's a reason in video games call them experience points. So you didn't trade it for nothing, you got an experience point. And then with enough experience points, you get to the next level. And so I think if you just even thought about it like that, it's not a loss, but an experience point. It could bridge the gap between your current income level and the income level that you want to get to. And then guess what? There's more experience point that you have to get there. And those experience points also cost more money. Because when you take a bet in the beginning, and when I say it costs money, it's like, if you run an ad and it doesn't work, it costs money. If you want to set up a Shopify store or an e-commerce store and you spend 30, 40, 50 bucks a month, whatever, it costs money. And it does, like, all of these things cost money to start. Now, mind you, it costs a lot less than it did in the 20s when you had to mortgage your house and guarantee that you'd win or you'd lose everything forever. So like, the bar hasn't never been lower than it is now, but there still is a bar and you have to get over it. And I still think that the vast majority of the shit that people are trying to get over has nothing to do with the difficulty of business, but the first step, the foundation, which is, it is my fault that I am here. And in it being my fault, I am the one who can get me out of it.
It sounds like a necessary.
I love this. I do. Okay, we've been talking about accountability. That's the foundation, right? Own it. You have to own everything that happens in your life. And so with spend less than you make, I love this because I grew up in an environment, 2 worlds, okay, with my grandparents, mainly my grandmother. My grandfather traveled, he'd fight with my grandmother, get on a ship and travel around the world delivering oil. 5-bedroom, 2-story house, and crystal and china, and just packed with stuff. Then my grandma didn't understand why she was into shoplifting and insurance scams, and it was her drug. It was an adrenaline rush for her to do this with my aunt mainly, and then my mom was involved on occasion, and it just was toxic. I think it was her escape from the reality of how bad her kids were, how things ended up. And so I don't have a problem. Materialism, less is more, less is much, much better. I kept it simple for my kids. They were involved in many activities, and I just reduced it down so that it didn't accumulate, right? And I think that I did them quite well. We're not here to serve our shit, and to go out and experience the world, have that world perspective, and serving others, and experiencing life, and you're not held down and trapped in your trying to maintain yourself. Whatever you build, you got to maintain it. So as they were involved in all these clubs, all this stuff comes in, and this what relates to spend more than less than you make is materialism. Whatever you buy, you got to maintain. whatever you build, you got to maintain. And less is much, much better. So for my kids, I would spring clean 4 or 5 times a year. And it didn't take me long to collect all this stuff, put it in a big garbage bag, basically, and we're headed off to Goodwill and, you know, toys they weren't going to use anymore. But it was simple, you know, underwear, socks, you know, shirts and pants, and then in the closet was their, you know, whatever activities they were involved with you know, baseball or soccer or football or whatever it was, or music. That would be in the closet. And then if I said clean your room, take 10 minutes, right? And then we'd be out the door heading to the beach or going on trail walks or, you know, heading to some, you know, activity. And so it was precious in that context that, you know, I tried to instill in them that we're not here to serve our stuff. 90% of people, you know, put a lot of stuff in storage and they close that door and never look at it again. And then they'll, you know, maybe look at it, you know, 10 years later and so for some reason they're moving and, you know, the things that are in there aren't even worth what they paid over that 10-year period. So they're essentially working for the storage company, the storage industry, okay? I would rather take that money and make investments and or have a vacation with my family once a year. So, you know, it doesn't make sense to me. This is the Western culture way. And I think what Alex is saying here is, you know, to spend less than you make isn't really that difficult. And as long as you're nutritionally fed, you're physically active, and you're socially active every day, those are free resources. Meetup.com. I think it's a national, you know, organization. And you can join any group that is of your interest. Should be walking groups, cycling groups, you know, travel groups. I'm involved with those 3. And there's surfing groups. There's, you know, walk your dog groups, you know. And so today with technology, you can have a very rich life without the burden of stuff. And I can't put enough, you know, stress and emphasis on that, you know, the Western culture can get you trapped. And I will tell you, somebody that I know deeply well, you know, says, hey, I need help, and I inherited all this stuff, and opens the garage from front to back, wall to wall, floor to ceiling, and I had to step back, and I went, oh my gosh, you know, we need help. All right, I need to get my trailer. You know, he says, oh, there's more, and then takes me to a container on the side of the garage, and, you know, opens it up, and power tools, and, you know, a lot of nice stuff, but it's deteriorating, you know, and it wasn't ventilated properly. And I said, wow, we need help. Like, we need a moving crew, right? And he goes, there's more. I went to a barn. I thought it was the neighbor's barn. He opens it up, and it was just filled with stuff. And he was so depressed. And, you know, he had car problems. You know, his transmission was not going well. And I said, hey, brother, I love you, man, but you're serving your stuff. It's not serving you. And that's the Western culture way. And I know that, you know, it's subtle sometimes for people and families, but ultimately it drags you down. And I'm fortunate that I don't have that attachment to material things. You know, if it doesn't run when I try to use it, and just get rid of it, you know, or fix it. And if it doesn't get the job done, then I don't want to look at it. And so once you realize that you have that control, it is precious.